Welcome to the calorimetry part 2. These are the topics which we are going to cover in today's class. To start with, first is thermal capacity or heat capacity. From our daily experience, we know that different bodies, say A and B, require different amount of heat energy, say Q1 and Q2, for equal rise in their temperature. In other words, we can define thermal capacity is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of entire body by 1 degree centigrade. Here, the statement is given that the heat capacity of a metal is 60 joules per Kelvin. What does it tell us? It tells us that 60 joules is the amount of heat energy which is required to raise the temperature of metal by 1 Kelvin. This is the formula for heat capacity where Q is the heat energy and delta T is the rise in temperature. Q is measured in joules and delta T is measured in Kelvin. The unit of heat capacity is joule per Kelvin. Next is specific heat capacity. Students, we have already spoken about heat capacity. Now why this specific? Because it is expressed in terms of energy per unit mass. Specific is it is expressed in terms of energy per unit mass, that is specific heat capacity. To define it in exact words, it is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of unit mass of that substance through 1 degree centigrade or 1 Kelvin. This is the formula for specific heat capacity where Q is measured in joules, temperature in Kelvin, mass in kilogram, hence the unit is joule per kilogram per Kelvin. Here we have taken two statements for understanding. Let's see the first one. The specific heat capacity of copper is 0.4 joules per gram per Kelvin. It means that zero point 0.4 joules is the heat energy which is required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of copper by 1 Kelvin. Another is 1 gram of copper has a higher heat capacity than 1 gram of aluminium. It means that water needs more energy to increase the temperature of 1 gram than that of aluminium by 1 Kelvin. We have already discussed heat capacity and specific heat capacity. Here we will just summarize in order to understand the difference between two. When we talk about heat capacity, it is heat energy required to raise the temperature of entire body by 1 degree centigrade. And when we talk about specific, it is the unit mass of that substance through 1 degree centigrade. Here we talk about entire and here it is about a unit mass. This heat capacity depends upon substance and mass of the body. However, specific heat capacity does not depend on the mass, but it is the characteristic property of the substance of the body. Students, once I placed water in a vessel and let it boil for some time, another few seconds. After a few seconds, it was still safe to place my hand in the water, but it was a bad idea to touch the vessel itself. Metal warms up faster than water does. That's what a low specific heat implies. Specific heat is a characteristic property that measures how much energy it takes to raise the temperature of 1 gram of a matter by 1 degree centigrade. The higher the value of specific heat capacity, more it is difficult to warm up that substance or cool down that substance. Here, metal heats up fast as well as cools down fast. This is calorimeter. It is used to measure the amount of heat contained or heat lost by a body when it is mixed with other substance. Here, the material which is used for this calorimeter is copper vessel. This copper. Then why copper? There are two reasons behind this. First is that copper is a good conductor of heat. Therefore, the moment liquid is poured in the vessel, soon it acquires the temperature of that content. Secondly, copper has a low specific heat capacity. So, the heat capacity of the calorimeter is also low. Therefore, the amount of heat energy taken by the calorimeter from its content to acquire the temperature of its content is very small. The outer and inner surfaces of the vessel are polished here so as to reduce the loss of heat due to radiation. The calorimeter is placed inside the wooden jacket. This is in order to provide the insulation. The space between the calorimeter and wooden jacket is filled with the wool because it is a poor conductor, and here we are trying to avoid the heat loss by conduction. A lid is placed here in order to avoid heat loss by convection. There are two holes made here. One is for the thermometer, another is for the stirrer. So calorimeter basically it is used in order to measure the heat energy liberated or absorbed when it is mixed with the other substance. Principle of calorimetry or principle of method of mixture. It tells us that heat lost is equal to heat gained. Basically, it is based upon the law of conservation of heat energy. To make you understand this principle, here I have taken one example. There are three liquids A, B and C of equal masses. Respective temperature is mentioned here. Alright. Now, when A and B are mixed, temperature achieved is 16 degrees centigrade. When B and C are mixed, temperature achieved is 23 degrees centigrade. The question is, what would be the temperature when A and C are mixed? We are going to follow the principle of calorimetry, that is heat lost is equal to heat gain, and the basic formula for heat, that is Q is equal to M into C into delta T. Now to start with the first mixture, that is when A and B are mixed, temperature is 16 degree. Now the temperature given for A is 12 degree. Achieved is 16. That means here A is going to gain the heat energy, and in case of B it is going to lose the energy. So in the formula, substituting for the values of the temperature, that is 16 minus 12, and for B it is 19 minus 16. This is the expression which we get. Similarly, let's talk about what happens when B and C are mixed. The given temperature on mixing B and C liquid, it is 23 degrees centigrade. B is at 19 degree and C at 28. That means B will gain the heat energy and C is going to lose heat energy. Using the same formula, Q is equal to M into C into delta T, and substituting for this change in temperature, we get this expression, that is 23 minus 19, and here it is 28 minus 23. Finally, it is this. Now, coming to the last part of this, when A and C are mixed, we are supposed to find out the temperature. So, let's assume T is the temperature. T is the achieved temperature when A and C are mixed. Again, heat will be gained by A, that is T minus 12, and lost by C, that is 28 minus T. Substituting m and m value will get cancelled here. Substituting for the value of Ca and Cc from the earlier expression, we got Ca as equal to this and Cc we got this. So in this expression m will get cancelled. We will put substitute for values of Ca and Cc and we will get this expression. Solving this, final temperature achieved is 20 minus 25 degree centigrade. Here are a few examples of high specific heat capacity of water. Let's start with the first one. The climate near the seashore is moderate. Basically, the specific heat capacity of sand is much lower than the water. Hence, it gets heated up and cooled down quickly as compared to water. Because of this, there is always temperature difference at the seashore. This causes convection air currents. The cold air blows from the land towards the sea during night, and during the day, cold air blows from the sea towards the land, that is sea breeze. These breezes make the climate near the seashore moderate. Next is hot water bottles are used for fermentation. The reason is that water does not cool quickly due to its high specific heat capacity. So a hot water bottle provides more energy for fermentation over a longer time. Next is fields are filled with water. During cold winter night, when temperature falls below 0 degree centigrade, the capillaries of the plants, the water in the capillaries of the plants freezes, that is its volume increases, and as a result there is always possibility that veins burst and plants will get destroyed. In order to avoid so, farmers fill the field with the water. Because of high specific heat capacity of water, it does not allow the surrounding temperature to fall up to 0 degree centigrade. Plants and animals have a high content of water in their bodies. Because of high specific heat capacity of water, throughout all the seasons, the temperature of the body is maintained. Because of high specific heat capacity of water, throughout all the seasons, the body temperature of animals or plants are maintained. All of us are aware that there are three states of phases: solid, liquid, and gas. The process of change from one state to another, it takes place at a constant temperature. It is brought by the exchange of heat. Let's understand some terms before we go into the deep discussion. First is melting. We know the change from solid to liquid phase by the absorption of heat at a constant temperature is called melting. And the constant temperature at which this solid changes to liquid is called melting point of that solid. The exact reverse change from liquid to solid phase with the rejection of heat at a constant temperature is called freezing or fusion. And the temperature at which a liquid freezes to solid is called its freezing point. Thus, during melting, there is absorption of heat, and during freezing, there is a rejection of heat. In order to understand the heating curve of ice, let's perform a small experiment. Take few ice cubes in a beaker, place a thermometer in such a way that its butt does not touch the wall of the beaker. Apply some heat. Keep on noting the temperatures until the point all the ice cubes are converted into water. Now here is the graph plotted based on the readings which are taken from the experiment. From the graph we can see that the temperature of ice remains constant, that is equal to 0 in the part AB. That means it remains constant till the time all ice is converted into water. The heat supplied during this time is being used in melting the ice. After this, the temperature rises in the part BC. There are most of the substances whose volume expands on melting. Substances like wax, lead. However, ice is the substance whose volume contracts on melting. Here, what we have spoken about is that substances like wax and lead, its volume increases, that is, the substances expands on melting. However, in case of ice, its volume decreases. Ice contracts on melting. Now let's see what is the effect of pressure on the melting point. For most substances, higher the pressure, melting point goes up. We have spoken about substance like wax or lead whose volume expands on melting. Imagine that you have a certain solid. Melting it would increase its volume. If you increase the pressure, it would become harder for that transformation to occur. It's harder to change into a state that needs more volume if you are under pressure. So you need more energy and hence more temperature to melt. Therefore, the melting point of the substances which expand on melting, like wax, increases by increasing pressure. Now, for substances like ice, which contracts on melting, if you apply pressure to this such substances, in that case its melting point goes down. For example, if we press two ice cubes together, the melting point is lowered. Melting point of ice would decrease the volume of the water. If you increase the pressure, it becomes easier for that transformation to occur. It needs less energy for smaller volume, hence the less temperature to melt. Therefore, melting point of ice decreases by increase in pressure. Next is, what is the effect of impurity on the melting point? The melting point decreases by addition of impurities. Melting point of ice decreases from 0 degree centigrade to minus 22 degree centigrade on mixing salt on it. Why this melting point is lowered on addition of impurities? Let's see. Impurities disrupt the regular arrangement of particles and hence the bonding gets disturbed. That means the bonding among the particle it is weakened. Therefore, less energy is required to break the bonds and melting point decreases. In short, addition of impurity lower down the melting point. The change from liquid to vapor phase on absorption of heat at a constant temperature is called vaporization. And the particular temperature at which vaporization occurs is called the boiling point of liquid. Students, we have to keep in mind at boiling point the vapor pressure has to be equal to the atmospheric pressure. The reverse change from vapor to liquid phase on rejection of heat at a constant temperature is called condensation. and a particular temperature at which condensation occurs is called the condensation point of vapor. So in short, there is a absorption of heat during boiling process and there is a rejection of heat in the condensation process. Heating curve of water. Take some water in a beaker, place a thermometer in it, heat the flask till water starts boiling and beaker contains vapor. At this stage, it is observed that bubbles are formed throughout the water. This indicates that boiling occurs throughout the volume of the water. Let's see what graph says. It is observed that with the absorption of heat energy, the temperature of water rises continuously in this part AB. That is, it is a liquid phase. From A to B, it is a liquid phase. At B, it starts boiling and temperature does not rise further in part BC. Although heat energy is being continuously absorbed. So here part BC represents the boiling of water. Effects of pressure on boiling point. As the pressure increases, boiling point increases. In a pressure cooker, steam is not allowed to escape out. The vapor pressure on water which is inside the pressure cooker becomes nearly 1.75 times the atmospheric pressure. As a result, water inside the pressure cooker boils at about 120 degrees centigrade to 125 degrees centigrade due to increase in pressure. Thus, cooking of vegetables or food inside the cooker becomes much easier and faster in it since they get sufficient heat energy before the water boils. Second is, at high altitude such as hills or mountains, the atmospheric pressure is low, less than 1 atmospheric pressure. Therefore, water boils at a temperature lower than 100 degrees centigrade and so it does not provide the required heat energy to its content for cooking. Therefore, cooking becomes very difficult and it takes much longer time at higher altitudes. Now let's see what is the effect of adding impurities on boiling point. As I told you, to reach the boiling point, vapor pressure should be equal to the atmospheric pressure. Now, if we are adding salt to the water, that is for hot water, we are adding salt to the hot water. In that case, part of the pressure come from the impurities, that is in this case salt, and not just water. Thus, the water molecules need more energy to produce enough pressure to escape the boundary of the liquid. On addition of impurities, water molecules need more energy to produce enough pressure to escape the boundary of the liquid. The more salt is added, the more you raise the boiling point. In turn, water provides sufficient heat energy to its content before boiling. In short, higher the pressure, higher is the boiling point, and more impurities are added, the boiling point raises high. We know that during the change of phase, temperature remains constant and a considerable amount of heat energy is liberated or absorbed. We have already discussed this. Now, heat energy is absorbed by a solid during melting and an equal amount of heat energy is liberated by the liquid during freezing without showing any change in the temperature. Similarly, the heat energy is absorbed by the liquid during vaporization, and an equal amount of heat energy is liberated by the vapor during condensation without showing any change in the temperature. Since the heat energy absorbed or liberated in change of phase is not externally visible on the thermometer, it is called latent heat. Why this energy is considered as latent? The energy is said to be latent because it is essentially hidden within the molecules until the phase change occurs. And why we use this specific? Because it is expressed in terms of energy per unit mass. Why latent? Because it is hidden within the molecules until the phase change occurs. And specific because it is expressed in terms of energy per unit mass. To define it in exact words, we say specific latent heat as the amount of energy that is absorbed or released when a body undergoes a constant temperature process. The equation is L is equal to Q upon M, and units are joules per gram and kilojoules per gram. Specific latent heat is an intensive property of matter. Specific latent heat does not change as the amount of matter changes. It is a bulk property, which means it is a physical property that is not dependent upon the size or mass of the sample. That is why we say it is an intensive property of matter. Molecules in a solid state vibrate about their mean position. We know that the total energy of molecules consists of kinetic energy and potential energy. Kinetic energy depends on the temperature, and potential energy depends on the force of attraction between the molecules and the separation between them. When ice changes into water without change in temperature, because all phase change occurs at constant temperature. So when ice is getting converted into water, there is no change in temperature. That means there is no change in the kinetic energy of the molecules. But the separation between the molecules on an average increases. Some energy is required for increasing the separation against the attractive forces between the molecules. Thus, the heat supplied during melting is utilized only in increasing the potential energy of molecules and is called the latent heat of molecules. Thank you very much, students. Bye bye.